Good morning. Good morning. I see y'all are the ones that aren't hungover from last night. Yay. Or else you're the early risers. Good morning. I'm glad to see so many of you here. It's not quite 9 o'clock. We're pretty close. Thank y'all for being here for the opening plenary. And unfortunately, you get to hear me this morning. But I'm glad you're here. And I want to thank you for being a part of this wonderful occasion. And I know some of you have been coming to these events for years, and some of you are first-timers. We welcome both. And as I said last night at our opening for the conference, we work really hard on the programming, but the people in the room are the most important aspect of this conference. U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin, as she did last night, often talks about attending the very first leaders conference when you could put everybody around one of these round tables. I attended my first conference, I believe, it was either 1986 or 1987, I can't remember, and that's actually when I met Tammy Baldwin. It was before a lot of other national organizations were in existence, and it wasn't actually called an LGBT Leaders Conference. It was just elected officials and advocates and activists in a room together. One of the second or third ones, I know Barney Frank came through. He wasn't out yet. It's hard to remember when he was out, but he wasn't publicly out, I should say it that way. So there's been a lot of changes over the years for this conference. But as we grew, one of the key elements has always been, this is about making sure that there is a support network for openly LGBT officials and that we bond together and support each other. And the conference actually grew separately from Victory. It was the elected officials gathering on their own and then eventually merged with Victory so we could have a tighter relationship between running for office and serving in office and the elected officials, and the feedback loop was created. Today you're joined by more than 500 LGBTQ elected officials, leaders, and advocates, but not just from the United States, but from around the world. Leaders who are advancing equality in school boards, city councils, state legislatures, U.S. Congress, and our governor's mansions. And it's great to be able to say, all the way from the school board to the governor's mansions. Someday it'll be all the way to the White House. We're not quite there yet, but we're working on it because we're building the rainbow wave and we are building the pipeline of officials. And it is an exciting moment to be together. There's been a lot of talk about the rainbow wave, and we at Victory actually coined the phrase, the rainbow wave. But you are the rainbow wave. And with more than 650 and still counting out LGBTQ people who ran for office here in the United States this election cycle, that wave continues to build. More than 244 of us won, including 136 non-incumbents who either ran for the first time or moved into higher office. As I mentioned, we elected our first openly gay man governor, U.S. Representative Jared Polis. It's now Colorado Governor-elect Jared Polis. And he joins Oregon Governor Kate Brown as our only two. We doubled the number of governors, and it was really gracious of him to come last night to be a part of the ceremony. It is incredibly stressful to be in the midst of putting together your new administration to govern a state and to take the time to be here. And who knew he would be completely upstaged by his 7-year-old, for those of you who were in the room last night. Did y'all see when his son discovered that he was on the camera and started mugging for the camera? Okay, I think he's a budding politician there. We also elected our first bisexual U.S. Senator. Kirsten Sinema now joins Tammy Baldwin. Double the number of senators from our community. We grew our numbers in the U.S. Congress. And I want to call their names: Angie Craig, Sharice Davids, Katie Hill, and Chris Pappas, joining our current members of the House. And we now have 8 members of the House, so a significant increase there as well, and they deserve your attention. We're really concerned about the number of states that have never elected an openly LGBTQ state legislators. Why do we care about states? And that is really those are our bread and butter races. I don't want to say some races are more important than others, but state house races are critically important. Why is that? It's where most bad legislation starts. And it's like an infection or a contagious disease. It spreads from state to state. And so we really pay attention to those races, and we are so gratified when folks step up and are willing to run in those state house seats. And so I want to salute the voters in Indiana, Kansas, and Nebraska for electing for the first time J.D. Ford, Megan Hunt, Susan Ruiz, and Brandon Woodard, who shattered that lavender ceiling in those states. So we still need to do a little work in Alaska, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee. But we want to get to the point where we can say that there's not a single state that has never elected someone. Now, sometimes that's been only one person, and we know that's not enough. We know that the critical mass is actually 3 legislators from our community, but of course we're never going to want to stop there. But a lot of work to do, but it's great to see. And in fact, I know now Florida now has enough for a caucus. You have 4, right? Yay, Florida's in the House. We also tripled trans representation in our state legislatures. You know, Danica Rome she's just a force of nature when you're around her, and she's always like that. Just so intense and so high energy, but it's not. She was not the only trans elected official. We have elected transgender council members, but now we can say that we've tripled the number of, actually quadrupled the number of state representatives, because joining Danica Rome, we now have in New Hampshire Jerry Cannon and Lisa Bunker, and in Colorado, Brianna Titone. And it's exciting to see. New LGBT people of color elected in Illinois and Pennsylvania: Lamont Robinson and Malcolm Kenyatta. So salute to them. And I mentioned in Florida, sometimes we run out and we win, and that's what victory works for. But we also encourage those who have finally made the choice to courageously come out while in office. And I mentioned Florida, and I want to salute Chevron Jones, who came out in Florida and is part of that caucus now in Florida. Okay, and to the women in the room, we elected women in unprecedented numbers up and down the ballot, 115 to be exact, and lesbians made up a much higher percentage of our elected officials than women candidates do in the general electorate. 47% of LGBTQ election night victories were women. We're really proud of that. And actually, we did a study last year at Victory and looked at how our women candidates do compared to our men candidates. And guys, I'm just going to say, you need to step it up. Our women candidates win more than 60% of their races compared to about 56% of the men who run. And again, when we all know that if we don't run, we cannot win. But we are particularly excited that we are helping to power the wave of women moving up into public office. So it's not just the LGBT community that needs greater representation, but we need legislative bodies all across America that look like America. And until women are 50% of those bodies, that's not going to happen. And we had an amazing run of coverage for this rainbow wave. from the New York Times to Le Monde in Paris to the Times of India to the largest German television station and the largest Brazilian newspaper, Rainbow Wave was covered. Yet, you know, as much as the talk has been in the media about the Rainbow Wave, they miss something important, and I think we should emphasize that. We're not just running in traditional places or safe places. We're not running in so-called blue cities or blue states or progressive places. We're running everywhere we live, and we're winning everywhere we live. And that is critically important to remember. Politics is local. Our races are local. Although we train in our candidate and campaign training how to address universal themes and how to handle our own narratives, in order to win, candidates have to understand local issues, have to have a plan to address those local issues, and have to know their constituents. And when we do that, we put together winning campaigns. And that's why we are making gains in these very, very red places. It's also important to recognize that, yes, we do get more scrutiny. And there are a lot of folks who tell us there's no way we can win because of X or Y or Z. Most often, some way to figure out some kind of euphemism for the fact that we're openly LGBTQ. But we win anyway, and we don't listen to those voices. But it doesn't mean that we always win the first time, or even the second time. We just commemorated the assassination of Harvey Milk, who, while not the first openly LGBT public official, was certainly the earliest prominent LGBT elected official. He lost 3 races before he won. I lost 2 races before I won. Then I figured out how to do it, and I won 9. And it, you know, you get there. But so I want to address the fact that more than half of our community members who entered races this year didn't make it across the finish line. It is not in losing the election, it is in giving up that we lose. Losing an election and running well, losing an election and advocating issues that are important, losing an election and connecting to voters in a fundamental way, it does multiple things. It positions you to run again, but it also changes the perception of our community. They may have lost a race, but they didn't lose anything for us. We had great candidates running all across the country. Some of them simply weren't successful this time. And we are working very, very diligently to connect them into the broader victory network, because we think it's really important to encourage them to run again, and to, whether or not they ever run again, to link together this broad national network of people who care passionately about politics and are willing to put themselves out there like that. A lot of people start their political path in appointed office. There are opportunities for those who start their political path on the way to elective office and don't get there to go circle back and look for appointed positions, to attend one of our candidate and campaign trainings, maybe polish their political campaigning skills, and then come back into the fray. But still ways to contribute. And it's really important to remember that a political office is not a destination. A political office is a tool. And we want to make sure that each one of our candidates that runs, whether successfully or not in that particular race, understands that they are part of a broader movement that affects all of us, and that as we run openly and honestly, and as we are visible in public, we change the debate, we change the dialogue, And we are particularly excited to see non-traditional candidates and transgender candidates running, because while I will argue that I don't think it's conceivable that anybody in America can say they don't know someone who is openly gay or lesbian, there are many, many people in America who can legitimately say they don't know someone who is transgender. And until everybody understands that issue better, and our brothers and sisters who are better, we aren't going to change the debate there. So it's exciting. Just as we want to have a place at the table, we have to articulate for ourselves. We don't win without allies, and in this, it's important to recognize that for the transgender part of our community, we who are gay and lesbian are their allies, and they need to speak for themselves as well. So, of course, I've been mentioning the rainbow wave. It's not just in America. That's exciting too. In places much harder to run than even the wilds of Mississippi or the depths of Kansas, there are many countries in the world where it's much more dangerous to run. And there has been a rainbow wave there as well. I want to call out Brazil. We saw its own rainbow wave in October, despite electing an anti-LGBTQ zealot as president. Oh, sounds familiar. And apparently racist supremacist. Sounds familiar. No, I'm going to stop there. Voters also chose an openly LGBTQ senator, an openly LGBTQ member of Congress, and 3 trans women as state legislators. Think about that. In Brazil, the rainbow wave. But now that we've had these unprecedented gains, so many new people in office, we have to deliver. And I encourage you to use the next few days interacting with your peers, interacting with folks from other levels of government, other parts of the country. Really think about how you're going to take the tool that you have been given, those of you who are newly elected, and how you're going to use it more effectively. Taking opportunities to engage on international issues, if that's your passion, taking the opportunity to engage at a better level, a deeper level on important local issues. This is a place to share and learn. And, networking has kind of become a thing where I'm going to go network, and you roll your eyes. Networking, what it really is intended for is to make connections to people so that you understand each other better and have a network of support. And that's what we hope to see, because it will make you better in your new positions. I'm going to reference some of my own experiences in, I've been an activist for a very long time. I'm 62 years old. I'll just go to say that. I have a Wikipedia page. There's no lying. I can't. When I started out as an activist in the 70s, I used to think that I could be an activist sometimes. I could be an activist when it was convenient. I could be an activist when I was at an event that called for me to be an activist. And I was an officer or board member of dozens of LGBT organizations in the 70s and the 80s and into the 90s. And I used to think that I could turn it on and off. But I'm going to tell you that we need all of us to be who we are, to be our authentic selves all the time. And there are often times when you say, oh, I just don't want to do it. Or, I hear a remark, I'm not going to say something, I don't have time, I don't have the energy. You don't have the option not to. It's not that you have to burn yourself out, but you have to be visible and you have to be present in ways that you haven't had to, perhaps, in the past. And it is important to understand that you're not doing it alone. Because this rainbow wave can't just crash on the beach in 2018. This rainbow wave has to be building and building and building. We're not going to look over 2019 because there's a lot of local races, but our eyes are very clearly on 2020 here in the United States and taking this wave and making it a tsunami that's going to crash across this country in 2 more years. So, send people into our trainings, bring people to our leadership summits, help us at Victory, help you by building the pipeline, filling it with bright, eager, energetic members of our community who want to make a difference. Help us find more people who want to be interns in our Victory Campaign internship program on Capitol Hill. Identify those who might need a little extra push, who might want to be part of our Victory empowerment leaders. Those who are coming from communities of poverty or communities of color who might need a little bit extra help. Because when we elect all of us representing the breadth of our community to office, we help each other achieve more. Now, also, those of you who are already in office, raise your hand if you're an alum of the Victory Congressional Internship or the David Bennett Victory Fellowship. Not in office yet, but by fellowship, folks. There you are. And then the David Bennett leadership training that we've done. Some of you I know. Come on, Judge Kirkland, raise your hand. You've been in the leadership training. We offer a wealth of opportunities, but you have to take advantage of them. It is a partnership that we're forging. How many of you went to our candidate and campaign training? I went way back there. Yes. Again, you learned, you grew. They're giving me this stop sign, and I'm just going to say that's only because y'all were late getting in here and they made me start late. I know that some of us are still on a high from the election, and I'm just going to say the very best day of your life as a public official is the day you're elected. The second best day is the day you're sworn in, and it's all downhill after that. But there will be other peaks and valleys. This is the place to mourn the failures, to celebrate the successes, and to build your support network to stand up and do it all over again the next day. Thank you for being here.